Robert Saleh is already scouting talent. Kevin Stefanski is meeting with his staff. Jeff Hafley's building his system. Meanwhile, Cleveland's still conducting second rounds of interviews. Tony Rizzo doesn't mince words. The Browns are blowing it. Of the 10 teams needing new head coaches this offseason, only Cleveland remains uncommitted, paralyzed by internal divisions and indecisive leadership. And it's not just about falling behind on planning.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It's about failing to offer candidates the autonomy and urgency necessary to build something new. The longer the Browns stall, the more they jeopardize their most valuable opportunity in years, the chance to reset around a top-tier quarterback. SHEDEUR Sanders won't wait for Cleveland to sort out its chain of command. Success in today's NFL means speed, cohesion, and vision, none of which the Browns have shown. While others install playbooks and build chemistry, Cleveland clings to a structure that rewards caution and past loyalties. It's a recipe for another collapse. Let's be absolutely clear, this isn't just about hiring a head coach. This is about whether the Cleveland Browns are serious about turning the page or just content to run back the same script, again and again, while expecting different results. Because right now, the script hasn't changed. The Browns are dragging their feet through a coaching search while the rest of the NFL has already moved on, locking in candidates and starting the real work of building next season's roster and system. And this glacial pace? It's not just inefficient, it's dangerous. Tony Rizzo sees it. The fans see it. And if the front office doesn't see it, they're either in denial or being silenced. Rizzo didn't mince words. He called out Jimmy Haslam directly, saying what so many have said for years in hushed tones. This owner cannot stay out of football operations. It's a recurring issue, and it's starting to feel less like a bug and more like a built-in feature. There's always some report or rumor about Haslam pushing for a certain hire, demanding input on coaching decisions, or mandating that key personnel be retained, regardless of the new head coach's preferences. And the irony? The one guy whose job it should be to make those decisions, GM Andrew Berry, might not even have full control. If you're trying to lure a visionary head coach into a rebuilding project, one of the first things they'll ask is, do I have full autonomy? If the answer is, well, not exactly, you'll need to keep the defensive coordinator and maybe run a few things by ownership. Then that's a deal breaker. The Browns aren't just being indecisive, they're making themselves actively unattractive to top-tier candidates. You don't have to look far to see how other teams are doing it better. 10 teams entered this offseason looking for new head coaches. 10. And almost all of them handled their business quickly. The Falcons made their move. The Titans, done. The Dolphins, the Giants, even teams with internal chaos, they still got it done. But in Cleveland, 3 weeks of interviews and speculation. No decision, no direction. And while this might just seem like a slow process on the surface, the reality is far worse. This is about a team with a rare opportunity, one that could shape the next decade of football in the city, and they're squandering it before it even begins. Let's talk about SHEDEUR Sanders. Whether it's him or another elite quarterback prospect, the Browns are looking at a potential reset at the most important position in the game. Deshaun Watson has underperformed and is likely on his way out. That's not speculation. That's trajectory. And in today's NFL, if you're about to draft a quarterback to be the face of your franchise, you need to have the infrastructure in place first. Not after. Not in hindsight. First. That means an offensive-minded head coach. That means a staff handpicked for development, creativity, and cohesion. That means autonomy. And that's exactly what the Browns are not offering. Instead, the reports suggest that not only are they thinking of retaining defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, but they might even be considering him for head coach. Let's just stop and sit with that. Schwartz led a defense last season that ended 5-12. And while he's respected around the league for his experience and no-nonsense style, let's not pretend this is the guy who's going to reimagine the offense or mold a top QB prospect. What's worse, the team seems to be clinging to him not because of results, but because of comfort, familiarity. Continuity. But what's continuity worth when it's built on failure? The Browns ranked 30th in points per game. That's not a minor issue. That's a red siren. That's a full-blown offensive collapse. So the idea that they're even entertaining a coaching structure that leans defensive again is baffling. It's like they've learned nothing from the last cycle, or the one before that, or the one before that. And it's not just about Schwartz. It's about the restrictions being placed on whoever eventually takes the job. If candidates are being told they can't bring in their own coordinators, or that certain staff must be retained, or that ownership wants to weigh in on the coaching tree, that kills any hope of vision. It tells every good coach out there, you're not building this. We are. And just when you think it couldn't get more dysfunctional, you throw in the Myles Garrett factor. Reports are circulating that he's pushing for Schwartz to stay. Now, Garrett is a superstar, one of the best defensive players in the league. His voice matters. But when player preferences start shaping staff decisions at the highest level, that's a problem. Letting a player influence who gets hired to run the entire team? That's not leadership. That's chaos in disguise. And this isn't a one-time mistake. It's a pattern. Cleveland has done this before. Fire a coach, conduct endless interviews, end up with a half-measure hire, give them a broken structure, expect miracles, fire them in 2 years, rinse, repeat. There's no bold vision. There's no unified front. Just endless churn. Tony Rizzo made it clear. This isn't how winning teams operate. Winning teams don't waste time. They don't make hires by committee. They don't hamstring coaches before they've even signed a contract. They trust their football people. They let them build. They give them the room to succeed or fail on their own terms. Look at Dan Campbell in Detroit. That was a full commitment. Look at Kurt Signetti at Indiana. Ownership, step back, and empowered leadership. And what happened? Progress. Fast. Measurable. The Browns, by contrast, are doing the exact opposite. They're bogged down in internal politics, dragging out interviews, letting ownership whisper into decision-making processes, and tying potential hires to legacy pieces that already failed. Even if they get someone in the door tomorrow, what kind of environment are they stepping into? A defensive-first culture, a meddling owner, a quarterback vacuum, a front office that might not even have final say. These aren't just red flags. They're deal breakers for any coach worth having. And don't overlook the timing here. Every day they don't have a coach is a day they fall further behind. The off-season isn't waiting. Teams are already installing schemes. They're planning for free agency. They're building out staffs and working on draft strategy. Every second Cleveland spends interviewing yet another retread is a second they lose preparing for a quarterback who needs structure the moment he walks in the door. Look around the league. The teams that have turned things around in recent years, they all had one thing in common: alignment. Between ownership, GM, and coach. One vision, one message, one direction. The Browns have none of that right now. They've got ownership overriding football decisions. A GM who may or may not have full authority. A coaching search being dragged through molasses. And worst of all, they're trying to build around a quarterback they haven't even drafted yet, with zero offensive foundation in place. It's not just disappointing. It's infuriating. Especially when you look at guys like Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold. Both failed in Cleveland or similarly dysfunctional environments. But when they finally got into systems with stability and offensive leadership, they bounced back. Because talent needs structure. It needs support. And right now, Cleveland can't offer either. This isn't about talent. It's about organization. It's about leadership. It's about whether this franchise can finally break the cycle of chaos that's defined them for decades. Tony Rizzo said it loud and clear. Unless Jimmy Haslam steps back, fully, and unless Andrew Berry is allowed to actually run football operations, nothing changes. Not with SHEDEUR. Not with any other quarterback. Not with any coach. So where does that leave us? The clock is ticking. The window is closing. And the longer the Browns delay, the more likely they are to waste yet another opportunity. If you're a Browns fan, you've been here too many times before. This is the part where hope starts to feel like a trap. But still, the question remains. Will they finally do the right thing? Or will they once again choose comfort over change, familiarity over boldness, and dysfunction over direction? Let us know what you think. Is this just another rerun of Cleveland chaos? Or can they still turn it around before the draft hits? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're tired of watching the same cycle repeat every offseason. And subscribe so you don't miss a second of the madness. Because if the Browns have taught us anything, it's that this story is far from over. And if you think this is just off-season noise, buckle up. Because this isn't just a rough patch. This is structural. This is foundational. This is the kind of dysfunction that doesn't just derail a season. It poisons a decade. Let's stop pretending this is just about hiring the wrong coach. The problem isn't the face on the sideline. It's the hands behind the curtain. Jimmy Haslam has now been in control of this franchise for over a decade. And what does he have to show for it? A highlight reel of firings, false starts, and front office drama. A coaching carousel that spins faster than any in the league. A legacy not of progress, but paralysis. This isn't just Tony Rizzo letting off steam. It's Cleveland's entire football community reaching its breaking point. Because there's only so many times you can sell, "We're building something," when the foundation is made of quicksand. The Browns aren't building. They're stalling. And in the modern NFL, that's the same thing as moving backward. And here's the cruel twist. They have talent. This roster isn't devoid of playmakers. But talent without direction is just wasted potential. The kind of wasted potential that fans are sick of watching year after year. Right now, the Browns are floating in limbo. Their offensive identity? Non-existent. Their quarterback future? Unclear. Their leadership structure? Questionable at best. And all of this is happening during the most crucial stretch of the offseason. While other franchises are mapping out their entire 2026 strategy, the Browns are reportedly still debating whether or not to retain their defensive coordinator. It's like watching someone argue over paint color while the house is on fire. And it's not like the warning signs aren't obvious. When you prioritize keeping a defensive coordinator who just led you to 5 wins, over empowering an offensive vision to develop your next franchise quarterback, you're not trying to win. You're trying to survive criticism. You're trying to keep things quiet in the building, not build something bold. Let's go back to that offensive ranking. 30th in scoring. Bottom 3. In today's NFL, that's a disqualifier. That alone should have forced a clean break and a fresh start. But instead, the Browns are reportedly packaging the next coaching hire with limitations, non-negotiables, and legacy contracts. That's not a fresh start. That's a reboot of the same failed software. And here's where the SHEDEUR Sanders factor comes crashing into the conversation again. Because if the Browns are even thinking about selecting him or any top quarterback in 2026, the conditions they're creating right now are the exact opposite of what a young star needs to succeed. You think SHEDEUR wants to walk into a team that's fighting over who gets to call plays, while the defense runs the building and ownership is hanging out in draft meetings. That's not a developmental environment. That's a setup for another high-potential quarterback to crash and burn. And if that happens, again, the blame won't be on the player. It'll be on the organization that refused to learn from the past. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, even Deshaun Watson, who came in as a controversial but undeniably talented player. None of them were set up for success in Cleveland. Why? Because there's never been organizational clarity, never been full autonomy for coaching, never been a season without drama bleeding out from the executive level. It's always chaos, disguised as continuity. You can't build a winning culture when the people at the top don't trust their own football department to run the show. And that's exactly what Rizzo was calling out. Haslam's interference is more than a nuisance. It's a root cause. And until that stops, it doesn't matter who gets hired, because they'll be operating with one hand tied behind their back from day one. And let's talk about the ripple effect. Because this kind of dysfunction doesn't just scare away coaching candidates. It poisons recruiting in every corner of the league. Want to land top-tier coordinators? Forget it. Want to draw in promising assistants from other programs? Not happening. word gets around. The NFL is a tight circle and everyone talks. Coaches don't want to walk into a job where they're going to be overruled, undermined, or scapegoated. And right now, that's exactly what Cleveland's reputation is. The sad part? This team isn't hopeless. They're not untalented. They're just mismanaged. The front office, when left alone, has shown real flashes of competence. Andrew Berry is a sharp executive. The problem isn't that he can't do the job. It's that the conditions around him make it impossible to fully do the job. If you're constantly looking over your shoulder to see if ownership is going to override your moves, how do you plan long-term? How do you build continuity? How do you attract real leadership? And it's not just Berry. Any head coach walking into this situation has to ask themselves, will I be allowed to fail on my own terms? Or will I be blamed for the dysfunction already in place? Right now, Cleveland is setting up a scenario where whoever takes the job will inherit a defensive coordinator they didn't pick, a roster they didn't shape, and expectations they didn't create. That's a losing hand. And everyone in the league knows it. Meanwhile, in Detroit, Dan Campbell was hired and handed the reins. The result? A culture shift that turned a laughingstock into a legitimate contender. In New York, the Jets have embraced Aaron Glenn and aligned the organization behind him. In Los Angeles, Sean McVay was empowered to build a new system from the ground up, and the Rams haven't looked back since. Those teams embraced modern football thinking. They moved quickly. They aligned top to bottom. Cleveland, on the other hand, is still running a mid-2000s playbook when it comes to leadership. And while they stall, the future keeps moving. By the time they name a coach, if they name a coach, other teams will have hired away the best assistants. Draft prep will already be well underway. Players will be watching, agents will be talking, and the message will be clear. Nothing's changed in Cleveland. And that's the real tragedy. Because for once, the Browns actually had a shot to reset. They could have made a clean break, chosen a bold, offensive-minded coach with full authority, built a plan around the next quarterback, moved quickly, sent a message to the league, and turned the page on a wasted year. Instead, they've dragged their feet, muddied the waters, and created a mess of mixed signals and quiet chaos. So now the question isn't who will they hire, it's does it even matter anymore? Because unless Jimmy Haslam makes the unprecedented move to step back completely, any new coach will just be another name in the long, sad list of scapegoats and sacrificial lambs. And the fans? They deserve better. They've watched this team flounder through front office drama, quarterback collapses, and endless coaching changes. And still, they show up. They cheer. They hope. But every cycle like this chips away at that hope. And this offseason might be the most damaging yet. If they botch this hire, if they don't commit to a real offensive rebuild, led by a coach with true power, then SHEDEUR Sanders or any elite QB will just be another name lost to the dysfunction. It's now or never. And Cleveland's track record isn't exactly inspiring. Because here's the thing. If the Browns really wanted to turn the page, they would have done it by now. It's not like they didn't know this offseason was coming. It's not like they were blindsided by the need to find a new coach or address the Deshaun Watson situation or prepare for a top-tier quarterback in the 2026 draft. No, they had time. They had warning. They had every opportunity to plan. And yet here we are, 3 weeks deep, multiple interviews in, and still no decision. That's not strategy. That's indecision disguised as diligence. And the NFL? It doesn't wait for you to figure it out. While the Browns are dragging their feet, teams like Atlanta, Miami, and Tennessee already made moves. They knew the value of time. They knew that every day wasted in January is a day stolen from development, installation, and identity. You don't win in September by hiring in March. You win in September by laying the groundwork in January. But Cleveland's too busy bickering behind closed doors. Is Schwartz staying? Is Berry running the show, or is Haslam micromanaging again? Can a new coach even bring in their own staff? Every one of these questions should have had clear answers by now. The fact that they don't, that we're even asking these questions, says everything. And here's what makes it even more ridiculous. The Browns are this close to resetting their quarterback future. Everyone knows Watson hasn't delivered. Everyone knows his contract is a mess. Everyone knows the team will have to make a move soon, maybe even this draft. And SHEDEUR Sanders, or whoever ends up being that guy, is going to need a real system. Not an awkward Frankenstein's monster of leftover staff, defensive culture, and offensive apathy. How do you take a top 5 quarterback talent and then hand him off to a defensive head coach whose claim to fame is being already on the peril? How do you sell that to your locker room, let alone your fan base? Tony Rizzo said it out loud. You don't build success by playing it safe. You don't win by clinging to what failed just because it's comfortable. You win by taking bold steps and letting football people make football decisions. The Browns? They're doing the opposite. Again. And the league sees it. Players see it. Other coaches definitely see it. This isn't just about hiring a coach anymore. It's about credibility. It's about whether anyone in this league can take the Browns seriously as a forward-thinking franchise. Because right now, it's looking like the same old Browns. And not the gritty, scrappy underdog version. The dysfunctional, death by committee version. The one where a new coach gets sold a vision, then quickly realizes they're just another character in the Haslam soap opera. And we know how that story ends. A couple of losing seasons. A locker room split. A fan base checked out. And another press conference with a half apology about learning from mistakes. But what's the point of learning if you never change? This could have been the moment the Browns drew a line in the sand. New coach. New era. Real control. An offensive identity, finally. But instead, they're doubling down on delay, politics, and misplaced loyalty. So let's hear it. Do you think there's still a path forward for the Browns? Or is this just another missed opportunity disguised as a thorough process? Drop a comment. Hit that like button if you're over this déjà vu disaster. And subscribe to stay locked in. Because if this offseason is already a mess, just wait till the draft.